just mad, and it was done on probably a very, very limited budget. 20, so the reissue was a lot better. And then listen to Ghost Ship if you're going to listen to it.
Yeah, I agree.
But
I think of the 4 albums you could choose from, this would be the last one to listen to.
Right. And so that's what really disheartens me, because I waited 6 years for this.
Yeah.
I wore out As the World Bleeds when it came out. Every day, I had about a 20 to 25-minute ride to work at that time where I was working. And every day, I swear, for 6 months straight, I listened to side A on the way there, or what would traditionally be side A, the first 4 or 5 tracks on the way there, the last 4 or 5 tracks on the way home. Like every day, I wore that CD out. And eventually I burned myself out on it, which I'm sure we've all done to certain CDs. So when this 6-year wait, man, I was expecting something just to blow me away, and it didn't.
Yeah,
so
that stinks, man. That really sucks to be such a huge fan of a band, have them kind of fall flat for you. So unfortunately, Biv and I weren't huge fans of Ghost Ship by Theocracy. What do you guys think? Are you guys Theocracy fans? If you are, let us know your feedback on the Facebook page. If you're not, check these guys out. But to Biv's point, and he's dead on with this, I wouldn't start with this one. That was Spit Out the Bone from Hardwired to Self-Destruct. Of course, you know who that is. You know what that sound was. You know what that album title is, or at least you should. If you're a metalhead, for God's sake, you have been living under a rock if you didn't know that. By the way, it's a new decade and Metallica has a new album out. Holy crap. But I can't... There are more episodes that we've talked Metallica than not, certainly here on the According Metal podcast, usually to jab at them or make fun of them in some way, shape, or form, just because that's kind of how we roll here. So here we are with another album, and it seems like time after time after time, we have expectations as Metallica fans of thinking this is the rebirth of Metallica. They're back. They're going to blow us away with stuff that's better than anything they've done since Master of Puppets, yada, 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 yada. Well, interesting press leading up to this album. Even some early tracks that came out made you go, huh? Maybe Metallica actually makes something that I don't want to throw in a paper shredder right away. So here we are, Hardwired to Self-Destruct, a decade in the making practically. So Biv, you and I are both Metallica fans. You go, of course, further back because you're 74 years old. But curious your thoughts, sir, on Hardwired to Self-Destruct. What did you think of it?
Well, I want to, this is an album that I feel like we need to have a little bit of perspective on. Now, to your point, Jason, I go all the way back. I saw Metallica open, a very lesser-known band named Metallica open for Ozzy Osbourne on April 14th, 1986. About 6 months later, Cliff Burton died. That was the tour. It was the Ultimate Sin tour. And actually, it was the Ride the Lightning album that came out before that with Metallica that... before that tour, the Master of Puppets tour, in support of the Ultimate Sin with Ozzy. But it was that time that I was, 12, 13, 14 years old. And I heard Metallica and I went, what is that? And so when, a year or so later or whatever it was, when they come into town to play at Market Square Arena to open for Ozzy, I went to go more so to go see Metallica than to go see Ozzy, although I was an Ozzy fan too. But that's how far back I go. And, we talk about, that ripe age, that sweet spot. And right when, Master of Puppets came out, I was about 15 years old. So it was at a very influential time in my life. And, so I got to see him then, up through, then, all the way up through the Black Album. And then all of a sudden, well, we all kind of know what happened after that. It went to just utter garbage for the most part. So I grew up with loving them. Then around, 1994 or so, they kind of faded into this weird, just almost unrehearsed, very rough sounding material that they did with Load and Saint Anger, and just kind of songs that went nowhere. And so anyway, I wanted to give that perspective that's how far back I go with listening to them. Many people started with, they heard Metallica later and then went back and heard that catalog. That was the catalog I started with. And so that being said, I gave up on Metallica years ago. I think Death Magnetic was what did it to me, quite frankly. I think that was the straw that broke the proverbial camel's back. Because when I heard that, I'm like, man, these guys are done.
No, I gave up.
These guys are just...
I gave up on them a lot earlier than Death Magnetic.
Well, I kept holding on to hope. I kept hoping. To your point. Oh, this is it. Oh, this is it. Here comes the old Metallica. They're back. That I was probably guilty of that because I wanted so bad for them to be back, and all they did for 15 years was shit out one bad CD after another. And now here we are, 2016. And we did talk about something briefly a few days ago on the phone, Jason, and that is in the last 12 months-ish or so, we've had a new Anthrax CD, a new Megadeth CD, a new Slayer CD, and now here we are with Metallica. And so, when the song Hardwired came out, I really dug the riff. And I remember you were, complaining about the lyrics and, because you're like, you said your, 8-year-old son could probably write something that was more mature than that. And I would agree with that. But I dig the riff. And then when Moth into Flame came out, I was like, oh, dude, this sounds very much like a Ride the Lightning type era song. So it kind of built up that, that hype. And then when the actual CD came out and I got to listen to all of it, I'm impressed. I am impressed. This is a solid CD all the way through. Are there one or two songs I could live without? Well, sure. But I could almost do that with, I think, Ride the Lightning. That being said, there is so much good stuff here. Hardwired, you've heard. Atlas Rise is my favorite track that they've done in 20 years or more. Moth into Flame, you've heard as well. Great track. Halo on Fire, I like, if nothing, for no other reason, just because it's a change of pace, which is refreshing to have on a thrash-ish album. So that you're not, we talked a little bit about this earlier, so, you're not having the same speed and tempo all the time. It gets tiring. Confusion, good mid-tempo track. Here Comes Revenge, lyrically phenomenal, great vocals. Really, really liked it. There are a few songs I could live without. Dream No More, Man Unkind, and Spit Out the Bone, which I know you love. I'm not a fan of it. But overall, man, it's a solid effort. This is a CD, in my opinion, that if you've given up on Metallica or you don't own anything except for maybe their early to, say from 83 to 92, you need to listen to this. You need to pick this up because this should be in any serious metal fans collection, I think. I gave it an 8 out of 10.
Interesting. And no, there's a lot of things you said that I agree with, some I don't. So let's go through that. So again, it starts out with, this is one of my first metal bands I ever fell in love with. I mean, if not, I remember being a hip hop and rap fan. and sitting in my buddy's car when I was 14 and he was 17. He's a couple years older than me. And popping in And Justice for All on cassette and me about shitting my pants, going, what the hell is this? And just hearing the song One and going, wow, this is really cool. And, you know, the metalhead in me was born at that point in time. I mean, that's essentially, I could thank Metallica, or you could blame Metallica, however you want to look at it, for me being a metalhead. I mean, that's really what it is. And so when you listen to Justice and you listen to Puppets and Ride the Lightning and even Kill 'Em All, I mean, it's just some of the best metal ever written. And many songs that are still 30 years later, you know, just classic songs. I mean, my wife has Master of Puppets in her, like, playlist of songs right next after, you know, Adele. I mean, I'm dead serious. Like, it's just, that's what it is. Say what you want, but that's it's classic stuff that everybody knows. As mainstream as you can make metal, that is who Metallica is. And to your point, you wrote them off after Death Magnetic. Hell, I heard Load and was like, I heard Until It Sleeps. I'm like, what in the fuck is this? Off of Load. I'm like, why is James singing that way? And what is this? So even hearing Load, there's a couple of songs on the album that are decent, but it was boring and not nearly as good as they could be. I would call Load almost the Battles-like album that we talked about earlier from In Flames, like an album that has a couple of songs that are decent, but you're like, what happened to the Metallica that was actually really good? Because that's not you guys. And ever since then, they've just gone incredibly downhill. And we always fall for this, hey, you know, early reports from the studios, Metallica's pretty thrashy again. And then you hear Death Magnetic and you want to just soil yourself and vomit all over your car as you hear it. Like, that's what most of it's become. So it's like you know, the love of your life tempting you, saying she wants to get back together with you, and you're all excited, and then you get a text just before you're supposed to meet saying, yeah, I'm not so into you. That's what every Metallica album has been like since the Black Album for me. So go into this going, yeah, I'll believe it when I see it. And so here we are with Hardwired to Self-Destruct. What do you think? Well, first of all, the song Hardwired, good, but again, it's like taking an F student and making him a C- or a D student. It's a heavy song with really juvenile lyrics, but it is what it is. Atlas Rise is good. Biv likes it a little bit more than I do. One thing that drove me nuts, and it started with Load, and it's been that way ever since, and maybe it's just because I'm, you know, an old school drummer, and maybe it's because I love and appreciate metal drumming, especially for, you know, you see guys like Portnoy or even, you know, Mangini or anybody for that matter, even death metal drummers that have cymbals and toms and just, you know, Nico McBrain. I mean, look at his drum set. You look at all of that and you see what Lars's kit nowadays is, which may as well be nothing more different than something you could buy at frickin' Guitar Center off the rack for $900. Like, it is a couple of cymbals, three toms, a bass drum with two pedals, and a snare. And I cannot stand the fact, the one thing that drives me nuts about this album is it seems like Lars Ulrich is the laziest, shittiest drummer in metal. It just drives me crazy that almost every song has such a reliance on snare drum, it pisses me off. And maybe that's my issue with a lot of the songs on the album, is just listen to Hardwired, listen to Moth into Flame, listen to even Spit Out the Bone, even though it's a great track. It's diddle 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 diddle. Can you do anything else, Lars? Can there be any fills or anything you do that don't require you just wallowing or just, you know, just pounding away on your snare? It drives me nuts, pisses me off. Anyway, but, you know, it's a pattern you see. Hardwired and Atlas Rise. Go and listen to those two songs again, Biv, and just listen to the snare and Lars, and you'll go, oh, maybe he's onto something. Drives me insane.
I never liked Lars to begin with.
Yeah, it just it really bothers me how shitty of a drummer he really is, and yet he has the reputation of being amazing. You know, he has some cool drum parts on Injustice for All, and some good stuff on Puppets. But when you know